I'm Amanda Razani with Digital CxO, and I'm excited to be here today with Andy MacMillan, CEO of UserTesting. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Amanda. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. Can you share a little bit about UserTesting and what y'all do?
Sure. UserTesting is a technology platform that helps people inside companies connect with real users, and those users can opt into sharing what it's like to be a customer. So if you're building a mobile app and you want to see what it's like for, 15 stay-at-home moms to use your mobile app, they can go into UserTesting and find that audience. And those folks will actually record themselves going through a series of tasks and sharing what it's like to use your app or to view your advertising or go to your website or whatever those things might be. So it's really a sort of a customer experience feedback vehicle.
Okay. So in your line of business and from your experience, we were talking about the role of chief digital officers and whether or not some people think that's a novelty position and others think it's very critical and needs to remain a part of the C-suite. So we're going to delve a little into that today. Can you share what your insight is on the position of chief digital officer? Is it a novelty or is it a very critical part of digital transformation today?
Yeah, we work with a lot of chief digital officers, and we certainly see it as an emerging title in organizations. I think it's important when an organization is going through some kind of digital transformation that they're not only setting out clear goals. We can talk a little bit about like what those can be. Sometimes it's augmenting your current strategy. Sometimes it's disrupting your current strategy. I think even getting that right, it seems like a lot of organizations are trying to figure that out. But ultimately, once you're aligned on a strategy, having a senior level executive, often at the C-suite for the size change we're talking about, take ownership over that and be empowered to go make those decisions and make things happen. And in many ways, sort of battle through it is sometimes, the innovator's dilemma of one thing is sort of disrupting the other thing you're already doing. I think that's very hard to do purely cross-functionally. And that's where we see this sort of chief digital officer being this person who is, held up and put in charge and is responsible for sort of making that happen.
So how can organizations prioritize this position? Where does the role fit in? What are the main responsibilities?
I think it really is key that when an organization thinks about putting in place a chief digital officer, that they're really taking the time to think about the ultimate goal. What are they expecting the business to look like in 2 or 3 years because of this role and this transformation? Again, one of the big ones is just, I've seen so many, for example, retailers that aren't really sure whether they're trying to move their store traffic online, whether they're going after new users online, whether they're just trying to compete for a different buyer who's, normally an online buyer. Is it combined? Is it omni-channel? I think trying to either hire someone to figure that out or have a sense of what that is as you hire someone, but then getting very clear on what things are we trying to accomplish as a business? What experience are we trying to create for our users, our customers? Is it our same customer? Is it a different customer? I think that level of clarity maybe feels obvious, but I'm amazed how many companies embark on a digital transformation almost in a reactionary way. Like everybody else seems to be doing this. We know that digital is important, but we don't know what it means to us. I think that's the tough way to put a chief digital officer in place. I think to bring somebody on board who maybe helps you figure that out, but then very quickly you have a top-down, clear strategy that is either about defending your traditional business with sort of a digital, facade, and that can be very reasonable, or it might be disrupting your existing business and really shifting things to digital. And I think getting that recipe right is maybe the biggest either success factor or pitfall that we see people make.
In other words, companies don't need to just jump on the bandwagon. They need to have a clear reason for why they're going digital.
Yeah, if 20% of your in-store traffic moved to digital, is that success or failure? There's no right or wrong answer, but you should know which one it is before you start. And you definitely want those teams aligned. You can only imagine what it's like if you've got a 100-year-old business all based on maybe in-store retail, and all of a sudden in-store retail is declining 20% and it's moving to your mobile app. Are you rewarding your in-store team for that? Is that success? Are these teams competing for the same buyer? How do you think about a purchase where somebody buys it online but picks it up in your store? We see a lot of organizations not even sure whether they're viewing their retail infrastructure as a kind of a legacy cost basis they have, or this highly strategic asset they have located all over the country near their customers. And so, yeah, I think those priorities and decisions are really going to be part of how the chief digital officer has to go get everybody aligned and has to sort of prioritize what they're doing and even how your digital experience should work. And I'm amazed how many times, organizations don't know the answer to that, but they're sort of wandering into digital. And I think that's a really tough road to go down.
Mm-hmm. So what advice do you have to companies that are trying to get started on this path? What's maybe the first step and the main priorities they should focus on starting off?
Yeah, I think first, the one I mentioned earlier, like a 2 to 3 year plan, like what does the mix of business look like? Is this an additional channel, a complementary channel, a disruptive channel? I think the second is really thinking through organizationally, what are you trying to accomplish? Like what is the organization trying to do and emphasize? What does the brand mean in this sort of digital world? I think that's another thing we see a lot of companies sort of think about too late. Like, what does it mean to have sort of an online brand complementing your in-store brand or whatever that could be? And then I think a lot about the talent. One of the big challenges with digital transformation is you end up in this sort of, which one of the worlds do you want people to come from? Do you want people from the kind of existing world of maybe in-store retail or in-store banking or whatever that would be? Or are you trying to hire people that come out of a digital first world and might really struggle in your kind of traditional business model? And I think figuring that out is hard. One of the stories that we talk about here at UserTesting was meeting with a chief digital officer years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And he was telling me that one of his big challenges was that he works with these brand group CEOs. It was a big luxury brand conglomerate. And he said, one of our challenges is that when we say the word customer internally, all of our brand CEOs, it's luxury brands, these brand CEOs think I'm talking about a wealthy couple that's on the Champs-Elysees that's walking in to buy a handbag. When we're trying to explain like our whole digital strategy about reaching people right now, their goal was actually in Southeast Asia. And their main channel they were trying to focus on was WeChat. So it's like the divergence of even who we're picturing be our customer, where they are and what they're doing. When we just say the word customer was so different. And so when you think of that chief digital officer, a lot of folks think of it as a technology job, but in a lot of ways, it's a culture change. It's a mindset change. Like, how do you get the company to picture your customer being someone holding a mobile device interacting with your brand, not someone standing in your store? And I think while those of us that maybe come from digital products and the kind of digital ecosystem that might feel natural, it's you got to kind of walk a mile in the shoes of somebody who spent 25, 30 years building their career in retail and realize that when you say customer, it's just not what they picture.
Exactly. It's different depending on the business, and it all rotates around the customer experience and what they're expecting. So what are, and really in what you just said, answer some of this, but what do you think are some of the biggest challenges companies face?
I think a big one is really trying to think about how to have a consistent customer journey across whatever these touch points might be, and really trying to decide, is the goal that it's as many of these touch points as possible? Is it as few as possible? One of the other stories I really enjoyed was talking to a banking customer, and they were talking about one of their goals was to drive up their daily active users on their digital platform because the team had come over from a social media world, the people they had hired. And I remember telling them, like, one of my goals every day isn't to use my banking app. Like, I want it to work really well when I need it to work, but I don't get up every day and think, boy, it'd be great if I could spend a little bit of time in my mobile banking app today. Like, is daily active users really the right goal? Or is it, a customer satisfaction? Is it trying to reduce the amount of time maybe that people need to spend in the app to be happy banking customers? I don't know the answer to that, but it was interesting, even the goals. And so I think really sitting down and thinking about across all those touch points, all of the places you want to interact with your customers, what are you transforming for? What is the customer's value out of the thing that you're doing? If you were walking a mile in their shoes, why are they happy that you're going through digital transformation? It's not going to be, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could reduce the cost of our store footprint? Or wouldn't it be great? Those are our internal mindsets. But what does it mean to a customer? Why is it advantageous for them to install your mobile app? Why is it helpful for them to have a digitally assisted journey? Why is it helpful for them to maybe have the product dropped off on their doorstep versus coming in the store? What are those things you're trying to do? And I think that's one of the things that feels easy to say, but it's really hard to do when you're a company with a cost structure. Especially when we talk digital transformation, I always think of it as like, these aren't companies that started digital first. And so they have a whole ecosystem. They've got, inventory and employees around the country and, all these things that they're trying to in some ways make into assets when they might be viewed as liabilities. And so I think, turning that around and saying, what is important to a customer? What do we measure that drives that customer satisfaction? How do we incentivize our team to drive those measures that matter to our customer in this process, and acknowledge that a lot of those measures, as I was saying earlier, are going to cause probably conflict internally. Like you're going to have teams that for 20 years have been measured on this metric that is going to inherently go down if you're successful with this new digital metric. And, how do you make sure that everybody's lined up, that that's the right thing for the company? And I think that's where we see a lot of these projects really struggle, is if it's not through the lens of the customer, and if these sort of inherent conflicts aren't addressed early on and sort of lining up the whole team of like, this is what it's going to look like to do this right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what you said, finding that balance, because, in this day and age, post-pandemic, you have digital transformation meaning different things, to a lot of different companies, because you're focused on many aspects, from staffing and digital transformation just with staffing, and then the supply chain, and then the overall customer experience. It's kind of, there's so many different focuses when it comes to digital transformation. So finding the balance across all those areas is so critical.
Yeah, I think that's right. One of the things that I would say has really changed in the last decade is, I think the companies that were trying to do digital transformation kind of in the Web 1.0, like the dot-com boom era 20 years ago, it was really a technology problem. You were trying to hire technologists to come in and figure out how to build stuff. I would say, I think in large part that has changed. I think of the world as being a place now where even somebody like me, I don't write that much code anymore. I started my career as a developer, and I joke that I was a good enough developer that somebody suggested I be a product manager. So I don't think my code was particularly good. But I can write code, my kind of bad code. I can load it into one of these amazing public cloud infrastructures, and it will scale. You can put stuff in Amazon or Google or Microsoft Azure, and it scales. And there's these amazing payment systems that work globally. There's ways to distribute my app. I can put it in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. And so you sort of think of it like, it's substantially less challenging to build a globally scalable, globally available digital experience and distribute it around the world and have it work and have it not fall over on, Black Friday. The real challenge is, will people use it? Does it make sense with the rest of my brand experience and what we're trying to do? And then again, internally, are people supporting the goals to try to go do that? And so I think the most successful chief digital officers are not the ones who approach the job like it's a new kind of CIO, but it's somebody who understands technology, but thinks of it as a vehicle to create a better customer experience. And then also is savvy enough to understand, how do you operate internally to make this new customer experience part of something that everybody's bought into. And so, I think that is another aspect of the title that's so interesting. When you say, like, what does it mean to be a chief digital officer? It means lots of things at lots of different companies. I think the ones where I think it's the most strategic are the ones where it's not just a fancy CIO, but it's really somebody thinking about and taking ownership over that sort of holistic customer strategy and experience, and what does that mean? And then, there's always technology problems to solve. I'm not saying it's simply easy to roll out global technology, but it's certainly a lot easier than it's been historically. And if you only view it as a technology strategy, not a customer strategy, I think it's destined to struggle.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and giving your insight about digital transformation and the role of Chief Digital Officer.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I think it's a really interesting topic. So thanks for having me on to chat about it.
All right. Thank you so much.